Welcome everyone back to the Degenerate Diaries. I'm your host Ryan Chua. I have a very special guest on the show today. This guy is simultaneously my favorite poker player to have at the table, and like my worst nightmare at the poker table. This is Dan Weinman, everyone. How's
What's
it
up,
going?
guys? How's it going? How you doing, Ryan?
Yeah. So I say that you're my simultaneously my favorite and my most hated player at the table because I love watching you play against other players. So like 90% of the time I just get to watch and enjoy the show. But when I'm in a pot with you, I like have no idea what to do. And I spaz and I probably lose to you a lot of the time. But yeah, it's definitely a ride playing with you. But yeah, why don't you tell the people a little about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I've been in poker for a long time now. It's been close to 15 years since I got out of college and kind of threw away the engineering degree and gave it a shot and grinded my way up online. And then, Black Friday happened and turned into a live player and suddenly got into tournaments and have been all over the place. And, just recently kind of came up to the Boston area where you are and have gotten to play some with you and kind of moving up here. I've kind of started playing a lot smaller, trying to like start a family and be more responsible, which I guess is kind of going against the point of this podcast, but we can definitely talk about some stories from earlier in my career.
Yeah, I think you would have some war stories from earlier in your career. You're being a little modest, which is fine. You have a pretty decorated poker career. So yeah, look this guy up because he's a serious player. But anyways, you said you had a story you wanted to share with me, so I'd love to hear it.
All right. Let's see. I mean, I've got a lot, and most of them, unfortunately, revolve around open face Chinese poker.
Okay,
Not
so
sure how
if you had to give it like a clickbait title, what would you say to lure someone in?
into the game itself.
No, for your story.
Oh, for my story. How about guy creates game, loses whole bankroll?
Great, I love. So open face Chinese poker is kind of I don't want to say it's a new variant. I'm sure it's been around a long time, but I know it became popular like a couple years ago. There was this app on the iPhone that everyone started using, and you would just see people at the table kind of multi-tabling this very unique looking app, and like playing No Limit or whatever, and just people yelling at their phones for like I wouldn't say a good year or so, like just people, kind of staring down like fuck, like, and you're just sitting at like a 2-5 or 5-10 table. And you're like, what's wrong? You're not even in the hand.
Yeah, so Chinese poker's kind of been around for a long time. I mean, I was playing it when I first got into poker. I'm sure it's been around for 50 years. And
Oh,
originally,
okay.
it was kind of just a game where everyone got 13 cards and you set like a back, a middle, and a front, kind of like you see now, but you had much less decision points. It was just get your hand and set your hand. So it was a pretty simple game. A lot of people played it like when they were waiting for games to start or when games had just broken.
Hmm.
And then this is probably 2012 or so, open face got really popular where instead of just getting all your cards at once and setting them, you got like one card at a time. So it was,
Yeah.
instead of having one decision point, you had, 5 plus 8, you had, or 1 plus 8, you had 9 decision points. So immediately the game gets more complex. And it's a super math-based game. There's not really betting. It's kind of just set your hand and then settle at the end of the hand. So it's kind of weird calling it a poker variant. But I was like immediately in love with the game. I was kind of nearing the point in my career where I had been successful enough where I didn't really need to play a ton of poker anymore. But this like threw me back into the poker world. I was like, oh, this game is going to get popular. I want to play this game. So for like a year straight, all we did was play open face. And then we started like tinkering with the rules. This is
Like
like,
live or on the app that everyone was
this was
using?
live. So this was 2012 before the apps had come out. And I think I learned the game at the series and then went over to World Series Europe. And this is kind of where my degenerate story starts. So I
What
go to
year is
the,
this?
yeah,
What
it's,
what year? What year is this?
this is 2012.
Okay,
So
so we're in 2012 in Europe.
2012. So like online poker had gone down the year before. I'm not sure what I'm gonna like do with my poker going forward or my life. I'm like trying to like start traveling and playing some live, but not having a ton of success.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the end of the series, and this open face game is just getting wildly popular. And I probably have, I don't know, I probably have about $100,000 to my name at this point.
Okay.
And
like total life and poker.
total life,
like
everything.
Okay.
I was never like a great bankroll manager. So as far as I saw it, I had 100K to gamble with.
Gotcha.
I've always thought that, if I go broke, I'll just get a job. So whatever, let's go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like to preface this story, I have a big piece of someone at the November 9 this year. So I know that I probably have a decent score come in, behind it anyway. So maybe it's a little less degenerate when we think about that. But I go to World Series Europe, and there's a big open face game every night. And the game is myself, David Benjamin, Bill Hellmuth, and Brandon Cantu. And we play.
What a lineup.
It was a good lineup. This was like my first interaction with Phil. And while Phil is like slightly different away from the tables than he is on TV, it's still the same Phil. I mean, name dropping every second. Can't wait to tell you how great he is. And I never really interacted with the other two, but we play the first night, we play like 10 hours. I think I broke even or so. When we play the second night, I lose 40,000 euros.
Ouch.
And at this point, 2012, the euro was really good against the dollar. I think it was like in the neighborhood of $55,000-$60,000, which is like
more than half your bankroll.
Yeah, more than half of my
in one night. In one night.
In a game that I just started playing that I didn't really know if I was any good at. Like I had spent 2 years grinding up this roll online. Like before this, I was never really like a shot taker. I was pretty much a rakeback pro online. Played 24 tables of 50-cent dollar no limit.
Mm-hmm.
I think my biggest losing day before this might have been like $2,000 or so.
Now, in this lineup, was anyone did you perceive anyone as a crusher, or were you just some guys that wanted to play open face and you kind of thought you had an edge?
I think at the time, Cantu probably was like the best at this. He had been playing it longer than everybody, and it was very clearly a math-based game. Like it was really who can do the best math and who can look forward and see, okay, these are my moves. Here's my equity making this move, and here's my equity making this move. And I was kind of coming into the game like, ooh, this is fun. Let's just gamble.
Mm-hmm.
So not the greatest idea in the world. Definitely a lesson that I didn't learn, because as I created new games, mostly around open face, I lost a lot of big numbers playing them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely not the brightest idea.
So wow, half your bankroll. Did you play like the next night and get a
No, I remember getting a call the next night. I remember Benjamin calling my phone, like in his French accent, like, Daniel, where are you? We're waiting. 3 of us are ready to go.
How much were you playing a point to lose that much?
We were playing 50 euros a point, which didn't seem huge, but this game four-handed, the game's a little bit different now. Everyone kind of knows about Fantasyland, and that makes the game play a little bit bigger. But with this game, playing one card at a time, you ended up fouling a lot more and playing four-handed instead of three-handed. And now every time you foul, you're paying out 3 people. So it's like, I foul my hand and all other 3 people qualify with, a flush or a full house. It's like 1,000 here, 1,200 here, 1,000 there.
Yeah, you can get wrecked like pretty hard in just one round of open face Chinese. So
for sure,
it's like I guess just maybe we should have explained this to the people sooner, but like you're kind of going up against all of the players at the table, right?
Right. So like obviously,
yeah, it's a point-based system based on like the hands that you create with the cards you get dealt.
Correct. So like a normal hand of Chinese, you might lose somewhere between 6 and 20 points is a pretty normal hand. Mm-hmm. So at 50 euros a point, a big loss is $1,000 a hand, but you have to remember you're playing 3 people at once. So if you don't qualify your hand, you might lose 1,000, 1,000, 1,000 at 50 euros a point.
Yeah.
So something that doesn't seem too huge. And I guess, losing 40,000 or whatever I lost was what, 800 points? That's not even like that big of a loss for that game.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think the lesson was, if you are learning something, maybe try it at some smaller stakes against people who might not be the best in the world before you just blast it all in there.
Before you say, "Oh, this looks like fun," let me give it a shot. Oh, it's only 50 euro point. Let's give it a shot. But yeah, let's. I guess the equivalent of fouling, would you say, is like if you lose a hand in no limit, like standard Texas Hold'em, it's like if you foul in open face, it's like if you lose a hand in Texas limit, Texas no limit, Texas Hold'em. Well, I can speak this morning. You instead of just paying out your opponent that you were in the hand with, you have to pay out the entire table.
Pretty much, yeah. So anybody at the table who also did qualify, you'd have to pay them. Plus, you would also have to pay them a bonus for how good their hand is. So
Right.
I guess the equivalent in no limit is like if you make a flush and I fold the river, not only do I lose the pot, but now I have to pay you your flush bonus.
Yeah. That's
So yeah, I mean it's kind of a difficult game to draw this map between no limit or PLO and this game, but there are some similarities.
Now, did you ever go back to it when it started to kind of go mainstream? I should say.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I didn't. I say, yeah, I definitely should have learned this lesson, but no, I didn't learn this lesson. So the next year, myself and a couple friends we tweaked the game a little bit and we created Fantasyland. And Fantasyland was like an additional little decision point that created all of this variance that suddenly made it a lot less of a math game. And it was more appealing to everybody. And that was the summer. So the summer after that, 2014, it really picked up at the World Series.
Wait. Back up. So you're speaking like you say you created Fantasyland?
Correct.
So are you responsible for like the modern, like what I know is open face Chinese poker? Because I don't know a ton about it, but I know about the app and like what Fantasyland is.
Correct. This is mostly my fault. Myself.
Holy crap! We have the godfather of open face here, and you
godfather of open face who's probably stuck about 7 figures playing the game lifetime. But
wow, that's crazy. Okay, all right. So let's get back to your story. So you played standard open face with like no Fantasyland, which is not the variant that I'm familiar with, but it's a round by round based game. You create open face with Fantasyland, where if you create specific hands, you get like a kind of a bonus round the next round.
Right. But kind of like we talked at the beginning, where like open face originated in like getting all, or like Chinese poker originated in getting all your cards at once and setting them.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that'd be a huge advantage over having to set it one at a time. So Fantasyland was basically getting to play old school Chinese poker instead of having to set them one by one. So like it was this massive bonus. So if you make, a certain qualification of hand, now you get to play, have a big advantage over everybody. So
right. It's almost like a no limit. Like you get to see the flop before everyone else. It's a huge advantage when you get to Fantasyland. It's like you get to see the flop before your opponents and play the hand as you want, and that happens for one round if you do special things.
Right. It might even be like as being able to see the whole board, or like being able to pick your whole cards the next hand. Like it's a massive advantage.
Yeah.
And
definitely
doing that created like all of this variance in the game. And I think poker is going towards this way that the more variance in a game, the more it's going to get picked up. And like no limit doesn't have a lot of variance. So
right.
You see basically pros have such an edge because, they just get to lean on weaker players. But games like PLO get popular because, fish can just get it in with 40, 45% all the time. And they're going to win a lot.
Right.
They're no limit, they're just drawing dead.
Okay, so you add this variant in, right?
Mm-hmm.
The app starts. The app gets released. Did you have any part in creating that app, or is it?
I had no part in creating the app. So Sean Deeb and I are like very close and had a lot to do with like this game getting popular. And he's very close with the guys that developed, the app that's the most popular these days. So
Tell them to finish the Android version.
that's true. They were iPhone developers, so that's all there is. And there's no good cross platform.
Yeah, I was just left in the dust with this. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't match up. It was probably for the best for me, honestly.
My best piece of advice is just don't get into it. It definitely kind of ruined my poker career, or at least ruined like my mental state for a long period of time, because not only did I have this, 40,000 euro losing session, and that was definitely like the biggest percentage of my bankroll I ever lost in a single session.
Wow.
If I'm thinking of like my biggest losses ever, they're all open face. My biggest wins are open face too, but at the end of the day, it's not really poker. It's kind of just a gambling game that I've been fortunate enough to not go broke playing.
That's wild. So I think the story here is more that you kind of made this mainstream, because I don't remember a time before where, and I'm relatively new to the scene anyways, but I don't remember a time before when OpenFace didn't have fantasy land.
Yeah, this was I guess close to like 6 years ago now that Fantasyland got popular, and now it's like unheard of to even play without it.
Right. And like when you say OpenFace, I think of the variant that you created. So that's crazy. Wow.
Not my greatest creation.
What? No, that's a pretty fun creation though. That's So what are you up to now that you're not losing your face in open face? Just do you want to put anything out there?
Still playing a lot of open face, unfortunately. With my circle of friends, it was never gonna be something that we stopped playing. So I still have 4 or 5.
Do you play it live?
Rarely. So
Okay.
all the casinos up here, Encore, Foxwood, Mohegan, they won't spread it. So when I was living down in Florida was like happy to spread any game as long as they were getting raked, so we could play there. Vegas is happy to spread open face, but for some reason they just don't want to spread it up here. Probably because the tables don't make very much. They take time, but players don't really want to pay it to play that. So you're kind of stuck playing on the app. So I play a few games with some friends, but nowhere near the stakes we used to. It used to
probably for the best.
Probably. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, it came to the point where like someone was winning or losing like a nice car every day on this stupid app. Like you're sitting there, you're just in the bathroom in the morning, and by the time you leave the bathroom, like you're 20 or 30,000 winner or loser, and it was definitely getting in the way of being a normal person.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. That would definitely alter a few things. Like you have one session, you're like, oh shit, I can go buy a Mercedes.
Now you can probably get like a better idea of why when the few times we've played together, not caring too much about the poker game.
Right. Because you're quote unquote retired now, right? You're
a little bit. I have a full-time job where I work about 6 hours a week. So if you want to consider that full-time, you can. But I definitely play poker.
It sounds like a modern full-time job to me, honestly.
But I definitely play poker as more of like a hobby now, and I try to have as much fun as I can, and I try to make poker fun for other people, which I think, has actually been very profitable for me, at least in the past few years, because we have a lot of players. I know when I sit down at a no-limit table that I'm not the best player anymore. But I feel like I probably can make the most money just because of the way I act at the table.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't know that that was your perception, that you perceived you weren't the best player at the table, because I certainly, when I sit with you, I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, oh, it's that guy that might either punt off a whole stack to me, or I might just give him my whole stack with like bottom pair. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen today when I play with this guy. So
I've actually talked with Dave Mock about that a lot, how, playing these games and playing like smaller than I have in the past, I have kind of these two modes where I might actually be trying to play good poker, and you don't know if it's that me that shows up or it's the me that just doesn't care and is just going to get it in with any two. And it kind of creates this like interesting dichotomy where you kind of have no idea how to play against me.
Right. I don't. I don't. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'm just like trying to comprehend like what you're doing. But yeah, it makes sense that there's these two sides of Weinman. Now that you're explaining, now that you're saying that. So, is there anything you wanted to shout out or promote? I know you're working in software now, so.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing too serious. Kind of working right now with a startup that's still very early, so maybe if it gets bigger, I'll come back on and we can talk about that a little bit. But
Definitely.
I want to shout out the 75 150 stud 8 game at Foxwoods that we're really trying to get going. So if you like stud 8 and you're in the area, come on down.
Okay.
I promise I won't play very good.
My friend will kill me if I don't ask you this, because this picture has been a topic of discussion amongst us. What is with this red puffy jacket? Like, how did that, like, why did that picture get taken? Why are you wearing a giant red puffy jacket in a casino? Like, it's just, like, there are so many questions around this, and like, I'm not too proud to admit this, but we've definitely thought about this like way more than you probably thought about it when the picture was taken.
The puffy jackets. So the puffy jackets go back a couple of years. So they're from this brand called Uniqlo, which you may know, you may not.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so it's like a popular Japanese like H&M brand basically.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I came to Boston, I saw that they had a Uniqlo at Faneuil Hall. So I went there and I bought some stuff and I really liked it. And I bought this one, like, I think it was a green puffy jacket. And if you look at like my pictures from the World Series, I wore it every day that year. It's hideous. Like, it's this just hideous little light puffy jacket that I'm wearing in the 120-degree Vegas heat.
I was gonna say, you definitely did that for the fans. You didn't do that for like.
Oh no. So I have these puffy jackets, and then my house. Who was I living with that summer? It was myself, Jason Mercier, his current wife, Natasha, Carly Thrower, and Kyle Julius. That was our house that summer. And everyone's like, all right, we need those jackets. So I think we put an order in for like 40 jackets. So everyone had every color jacket. They had 4 or 5 colors on the website.
This topic is way more epic than I thought it would be. Holy shit.
We order these 40 jackets and Uniqlo cancels the order. They're like, oh, we don't allow anyone to resell our product. So I'm like trying to convince them, listen, we're not reselling your shit. I want all your jackets. So I have 5 different color of these things. I don't know.
So it was just kind of a nostalgia thing when you brought it to Foxwoods and you were wearing it and someone took a picture.
Yeah, sometimes I go in the closet and I see like one of the 5 colors peeking out. I got a red one. I got a blue one. I can bring some different colors out for the fans sometime.
That's a wild story. I had no idea that there was like an origin story to this red jacket. I thought you were just like, I tend to overanalyze things, so like I thought you were just being funny in this instance, but I didn't know this had a whole backstory. That's awesome.
I'm usually trying to be funny. In this case, there was an origin story to the puffy jackets, the downy jackets, as my friend Jordan would call them.
I mean, they're a great look. I'll definitely have the picture up when I put this on. So.
All right.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and sharing that story. That's wow, we learned a lot about you today.
Sure, yeah. Happy to share. I've never really talked about that part of the career.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a part that has to get shared, and that's kind of why I started this whole thing. I mean, I have several stories that result in smaller 5-figure losses, but I definitely learned lessons, and I was definitely irresponsible with my bankroll doing them. So, I mean, I think everyone has kind of a moment of, what the hell am I doing?
For sure. Yeah, if you want to make it in this profession, you definitely have to limit those kind of days, but we've all had them.
Right, exactly. All right, man. Well, thank you for your time again. It was great to have you. If you've got more stories, I'll be begging you to come back on and, and share them. But man, that was a good one. That's awesome.
All right.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, have a good one, Ryan.
Peace.